Imagine this scenario for a second. You're spending a Saturday afternoon just kind of digging through a dusty box of old VHS tapes at a neighborhood garage sale.
Oh, I love doing that.
Right. Or maybe you're just tumbling down one of those late-night internet rabbit holes.
Yeah, just clicking from one Wikipedia page to another at 2 in the morning.
Exactly. And suddenly you stumble across a piece of media that makes you stop dead in your tracks and ask, wait, this existed.
It's the best feeling.
It really is. You find a television show that boasted a massive multi-million person audience, a brilliant ensemble cast, and these truly wild storylines. And yet, somehow, it has completely slipped through the cracks of our pop culture memory.
Like it never happened.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of discovering a hidden room in a house you've lived in for your entire life. So, welcome to the Deep Dive. We are so thrilled you're here with us today to explore one of those hidden rooms.
It genuinely is the best feeling, finding that obscure, forgotten gem and bringing it back into the light. And the subject we're looking at today is, it's a perfect example of television archaeology.
It really is.
Because it tells us so much, not just about comedy, but about how the entertainment industry actually functioned before the streaming era.
Right, before algorithms ran everything. Today, we are pointing our magnifying glass at a forgotten 1994 CBS sitcom called The Five Mrs. Buchanans.
Such a great title.
Our material for this deep dive comes from a highly detailed Wikipedia retrospective, and it breaks down the show's core premise, its incredibly volatile character dynamics, the specific episode plots, and a rather dramatic behind-the-scenes production history that ultimately doomed the series.
It serves as this fascinating snapshot of mid-90s television. I mean, we have this meticulous record of a show that flickered so brightly on the national stage, proved it could draw a massive audience, and then just vanished into thin air.
Just poof, gone. And our mission for this deep dive is threefold. First, we're going to explore the incredibly quirky character dynamics of this hidden 90s gem.
Which are wild.
So wild. Because the way these women interact is essentially the engine of the entire show. Second, we want to extract the absolute comedic gold from its brief 17-episode run to see what kind of boundaries they were pushing.
They definitely pushed some boundaries.
They really did. And finally, we're going to look at the network's scheduling decisions to understand what they reveal about the cutthroat, high-stakes world of television broadcasting. Okay, let's unpack this.
To really understand the mechanics of The Five Mrs. Buchanans, you first have to understand the battlefield where the comedy actually takes place.
The battlefield, yeah.
It is a battlefield. The show is set in the fictional small town of Mercy, Indiana, and the core premise revolves around 4 very diverse women who have absolutely nothing in common, except that they are all sisters-in-law.
Right. And what brings these 4 wildly different women together in Mercy, Indiana? Is it a profound, heartwarming love for the Buchanan family legacy?
Definitely not.
No. It is their mutual, passionate loathing for their absolute monster of a mother-in-law, Mother Emma Buchanan. They are bound together by a shared, formidable adversary.
It's a remarkably efficient sitcom engine. I mean, the writers took 4 completely different personalities, married them into the exact same family, and gave them a singular, terrifying matriarch to deal with. It essentially guarantees conflict in every single scene.
It's brilliant. Let's look at the actual daughters-in-law, because the character archetypes they built are incredibly vivid.
Very 90s.
So 90s. First, you have the unofficial leader of the group, Alexandria, who goes by Alex. She's a Jewish 1970s feminist crusader, originally from New York City. She runs a local antique store, and she's usually the most level-headed, pragmatic member of the bunch.
Right.
She is married to the eldest Buchanan son, Roy, who works as a high school principal.
And then, sitting on the complete opposite end of the ideological spectrum, you have Vivian. Vivian is written as a highly neurotic, fiercely Republican housewife. She's married to Ed, a used car salesman, and she is constantly terrorized by their absolute hellion twin sons, Lyndon and PJ.
Actually, quick time out for our listeners right here.
Yeah, good idea.
When we talk about Alex's liberal feminist crusades or Vivian's hardcore conservative Republican antics, we need to make it crystal clear that we aren't taking any political sides here. We are completely impartial.
Absolutely.
We're simply looking at how the writers in 1994 used these extreme political and cultural contrasts as blueprints for the comedy.
That is a great point to highlight. The writers were just taking the most polarizing archetypes of the early 90s and forcing them to sit at the same dinner table. The political traits were just tools to create friction and humor, and we're just reporting on how those tools were used in the script.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Vivian's character in particular was given some of the most outrageous, extreme sitcom antics to emphasize that friction, to give you a taste of how intense her character gets.
Oh, the dress.
The dress.
Hmm.
The episode guide notes that Vivian actually sold pints of her own blood just so she could afford to buy a new dress to wear to a dinner honoring Dan Quayle.
Selling blood for a Dan Quayle dinner.
I know.
It really paints a picture of the lengths the writers were willing to go to heighten these personalities. You have Alex's grounded New York pragmatism constantly clashing with Vivian's intense neurotic dedication to her social standing.
And the family tree only gets more complicated from there. We also have Delilah. Delilah is originally from Corpus Christi, Texas.
Right.
She's written as a sweet, somewhat ditzy blonde who usually wears heavy makeup and revealing clothing. And the defining detail of her character is that she is a former stripper who ended up falling in love with and marrying the town preacher.
Reverend Charles Buchanan.
Yes, a former stripper married to the town preacher.
It's the classic fish out of water setup, but with a scandalous twist for a small Indiana town. She even becomes the head of the ladies' auxiliary. Her past as a stripper causes constant friction with the conservative townspeople, but her genuinely caring nature is usually what resolves the conflict by the end of the half hour.
It's interesting you mention her past, because the production notes reveal an early clash between the show's creative vision and the network's comfort level regarding Delilah.
Oh, the pilot reshoots.
Yeah, the original unaired pilot featured specific jokes about Delilah wearing a very skimpy dress.
Oh.
But by the time the pilot was actually broadcast on CBS, those jokes had been completely scrubbed and reshot. They were swapped out for alternate, safer one-liners about her wearing heavy makeup instead.
That is a perfect early indicator of the business side of television interfering with the art. The network was clearly calibrating the tone for Middle America. They wanted to sanitize the visual impact of her past while still keeping the broad comedic premise of her character.
Right.
It shows how networks constantly try to smooth out the edges of a show to make it palpable for advertisers.
And we will definitely see that network interference come back to haunt them later. But to round out the four daughters-in-law, we have Bree. Bree is the newcomer to the family. She's a Californian and a former Disneyland employee who had a massive whirlwind romance with the youngest brother, Jesse.
Bree serves a very specific mechanical purpose in the pilot. She is what the industry calls an audience surrogate.
Right, we should explain that.
For anyone listening who might not be familiar with that term, an audience surrogate is basically the normal person dropped into a crazy situation. The audience learns about the family's bizarre dynamics at the exact same time Bree does, through her eyes.
And her character description is such a specifically 90s combination of traits. She's characterized as naive, childish, overtly vain, and strangely enough, she has a morbid fascination with dead bodies.
It was such a weird detail.
Ex-Disneyland worker, extremely vain, loves dead bodies. But she eventually earns her place in the group by standing up to the ultimate boss of the show, Mother Emma Buchanan.
What's fascinating here is Mother Emma herself, because in a lesser sitcom, it would be so incredibly easy to just write her as a one-dimensional cartoon villain. She is described on paper as a stoic, gravelly-voiced, passive-aggressive gargoyle of a woman who demands ceaseless, unquestioning devotion from her four sons.
Calling someone a passive-aggressive gargoyle is such an incredible insult.
It really is. But the background lore provided in the article completely changes how you view her behavior. Emma was actually a brilliant, aspiring doctor, but her husband abruptly left her for a much younger woman, and she was forced to abandon her dreams and raise her four boys entirely alone in poverty. She uses this hardship to fuel her intense, critical oversight of her daughters-in-law.
Having that grounded emotional anchor in Emma was crucial, because without it, the audience would never buy into the absolute absurdity of the episode plots the writers were cooking up. It adds a layer of genuine compassion beneath her tough exterior.
Yeah. Exactly.
She is merciless, yes, but she sacrificed her life for her children. That is universal truth the other women respect. Here's where it gets really interesting, because I want to know how they balance that deep emotional resonance with the comedy.
Yeah.
So what did these storylines actually look like? Are we talking standard 90s sitcom misunderstandings, like double booking a dinner date?
You would think so, but they took some wildly dark and ambitious swings. The episode summaries read like a masterclass in balancing genuine family pathos with sheer absurdity. Take episode 4, titled A Ring of Truth. The plot kicks off when the diamond falls out of Bree's engagement ring. Vivian takes her to the local jeweler to get it fixed, and they are devastated to discover the stone is totally fake.
Which naturally leads them to investigate the rest of the family jewelry, I assume.
Precisely. The jeweler checks the other daughters-in-law's rings, and it turns out all 4 of them have fake engagement rings. Naturally, the women storm off to confront Mother Emma, assuming this is just another one of her cruel, manipulative, penny-pinching tricks. But when cornered, Emma confesses the truth. She didn't buy fake rings out of malice. She bought them as love tokens years ago because she was living in absolute poverty and simply didn't have the money to afford real diamonds for her sons to give to their future fiancés.
That completely changes the framing of the joke. You go in expecting a laugh track about how cheap and mean the mother-in-law is, and it pivots into this heartbreaking reveal about a single mother struggling to survive and wanting her boys to have something nice to offer.
It illustrates that rare blend of comedy and drama that the best shows achieve. But the writers were also completely fearless when it came to bizarre, borderline macabre slapstick.
The tonal whiplash is amazing. Just a few weeks after that touching engagement ring episode, we get episode 8. Vivian, the highly neurotic Republican housewife, has finally reached her breaking point with her monstrous twin sons. She spanks them, and the narrative consequence is that she actually goes to jail for child abuse.
Putting a main character behind bars for child abuse in a 30-minute comedy slot is an incredibly bold swing.
Very bold. And if you thought that was dark, we have to talk about episode 12, The Incredible Journey. Alex, the grounded antique store owner, had a beloved dog that disappeared while they were visiting the Grand Canyon years ago.
Right.
In this episode, the dog miraculously returns home to Indiana, only to immediately die upon arrival.
Just unbelievable.
And apparently, she then learns the shocking truth about how he escaped the canyon in the first place.
Yeah.
I assumed this would be lighthearted family fare, but a dead dog plot is wildly dark for a multi-camera comedy.
And just to clarify for anyone wondering about the format, a multi-camera comedy means the show was filmed live on a soundstage with 3 or 4 cameras running simultaneously, all in front of a live studio audience whose real laughter you hear on the track.
Yeah.
So imagine sitting in that studio audience expecting light banter, and suddenly the plot revolves around a miraculously returning dog dropping dead. It tests how far they could stretch the audience's suspension of disbelief.
Which brings us to episode 16, Never on the Road Again. This sounds like an absolute riot to film in front of a live crowd. Emma forces all 4 of her daughters-in-law to go on a miserable road trip to attend the funeral of Great-Aunt Velma Buchanan. And Great-Aunt Velma, according to the character notes, weighed 650 pounds and was completely housebound.
You can already see where the physical comedy is heading.
When they finally arrive at the funeral service, the casket isn't a casket at all. It is just a massive wooden shipping crate.
Oh my goodness.
The visual of this giant crate, combined with whatever the funeral director was saying at the podium, causes all 5 Buchanan women, including the stoic gargoyle, Mother Emma, to completely lose their composure and break down laughing hysterically during the solemn service.
What stands out to you about these plots? Because if you're listening to this and wondering how a giant shipping casket fits into a family sitcom, that's exactly the magic of 90s television. Think about the mechanics of staging that scene. You have 5 incredibly talented comedic actresses dressed in black, standing around a giant wooden shipping crate at a funeral, trying to act out uncontrollable laughter while feeding off the energy of a live studio audience. It highlights the sheer ensemble strength of the cast.
It really is like a time capsule of how television used to be written. It was essentially weekly theater.
Which brings us to the behind-the-scenes reality of making a show like this. Because as fun and creative as the on-screen product was, the off-screen reality was a brutal game of network chess.
It's the part of television history that often gets glossed over, but the boardroom dictates everything about what we end up watching in our living rooms. We already touched on the network sanitizing Delilah's dress, but there were bigger structural issues at play from the very beginning. The production history notes that the original unaired pilot wasn't even called The 5 Mrs. Buchanans. It was titled The 4 Mrs. Buchanans, referring only to the daughters-in-law.
Which is a fundamental misunderstanding of their own show's premise.
Right.
Mother Emma is the sun that all these other planets orbit around. The network executives clearly watched the pilot and realized they needed to include the matriarch in the title, hence the shift to the 5.
But even after fixing the title, tweaking the pilot, and finding that creative sweet spot with the cast, the show still had to survive the ratings roller coaster. And in 1994, before streaming or DVRs existed, your time slot was a matter of life or death. The show received an initial 13-episode order from CBS, Shortly after its premiere, the network announced it was giving the series a 5-episode pickup, bringing the total to 18. But the records show that only 17 episodes ever aired and are known to have been produced.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this exposes the cruel reality of television scheduling in the 1990s. A show can have a brilliant cast, sharp writing, and critical support, but if a network executive places it in the wrong time slot, it is essentially set up to fail.
Completely.
The 5 Mrs. Buchanans regularly aired on Saturday nights, and in 1994, Saturday night was rapidly becoming a graveyard for television viewership. People were going out, cultural habits were shifting away from weekend appointment viewing, and the overall audience pool was shrinking. The show was faltering simply because no one was home to watch it.
But here is the massive what-if scenario that makes this story so compelling. According to an interview with Eileen Heckart, the veteran actress who played Mother Emma, CBS, actually had a rescue plan in motion. They ordered those additional episodes with the explicit intention of rescuing the show from the Saturday night graveyard and moving it to a prime Monday night slot.
And not just any Monday night slot. They were planning to schedule it immediately following Murphy Brown. For context, Murphy Brown was an absolute cultural juggernaut at the time. It was pulling in massive numbers and sparking national conversations. It was the perfect, highly visible lead-in for another show about strong, complex, opinionated women.
And we know this rescue plan would have worked because CBS actually tested it out. Episode 7, titled Alex, Then and N Now W, aired as a special preview on a Monday night on October 31st, 1994. And according to the Nielsen ratings, which was the system used to estimate total audience size, that single episode pulled in 17.8 million viewers.
That is huge.
17.8 million. To put that in perspective, by today's metrics, or even 1994 metrics, that is a wildly successful number. The audience was undeniably there. The test proved the show could be a massive breakout hit if people just knew what channel to turn to. So what does this all mean?
It means that the show's ultimate failure had absolutely nothing to do with the quality of the art or the appeal of the characters. Because despite that massive Monday night success, the network executives abruptly changed their minds. Instead of giving the 5 Mrs. Buchanans that coveted Monday slot after Murphy Brown, CBS decided to award that premium real estate to a brand new mid-season replacement show called Sybil.
A mid-season replacement being a show brought in halfway through the TV calendar year to replace something that was failing.
Exactly. They ordered Sybil, handed it the golden ticket time slot, and left the 5 Mrs. Buchanan stranded on Saturday night to quietly bleed out viewers. That single bureaucratic scheduling choice effectively killed the show, terminating its run at just 17 episodes.
It is genuinely heartbreaking when you lay it all out like that. You have this incredibly talented ensemble of women, a show that masterfully balances genuine family heart with completely unhinged dead dog comedy, a proven tested audience of nearly 18 million people, and it just gets wiped off the board entirely because of a corporate scheduling pivot in a boardroom.
This raises an important question, and it really is the ultimate takeaway from our deep dive today. We've spent this time exploring a television show featuring a strong, female-led ensemble, tackling complex family dynamics which successfully captured millions of viewers. Yet it was completely erased from pop culture memory. And it wasn't erased because the writing was poor, or the acting fell flat, or the audience rejected it. It was erased because a few executives decided another show made more strategic sense for their Monday night block.
It makes you wonder how much of the media we consider classic only achieved that status because they got lucky with their time slot, and how many masterpieces we lost simply because they aired at 8 p.m. on a Saturday.
That is the exact thought I want to leave our listeners with today as you go about your week. Think about the information, the art, and the culture that we all consume in our own modern lives. In 1994, it was a television network executive making a scheduling choice behind a closed door. Today, it's a digital algorithm deciding what shows up on your feed and what gets buried.
That is such a profound parallel. The algorithm is just the modern equivalent of a TV network executive deciding what we are allowed to see.
Exactly. How many brilliant ideas, lost classics, or incredible aha moments are we completely missing out on? Not because they aren't valuable or entertaining, but simply because the algorithm didn't put them in the right place at the right time. What hidden gems are out there waiting for you to discover if you just take a moment to look past the front page of your feed?
There are so many stories out there just waiting to be dusted off. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey to Mercy, Indiana, and for exploring the lost world of the 5 Mrs. Buchanans with us. We absolutely love unpacking these stories with you. Until next time, keep digging for those hidden gems.